Yeah, are we really? I think the beginning of every one of my lives is me looking at my phone saying, are we live? Are we live? I see we're live. It says we're live and no one's watching, but let me just check on my phone and make sure we really
You are. I just got the notification that you're live.
Perfect. So I don't need to check. Yay. Yep. Thank you. Well, welcome everybody. It's day 6 of Calming the ADHD Family. I'm Lara Dawn, and I'm so happy to have some special guests joining for the live. We have DeLucia and Lillian Reekie with us today. So welcome, ladies. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having us.
So I was going to start with offering Suzanne 3 prizes from Suzanne Tucker, but I'm going to wait one more day because people were not quite sure how to win Suzanne's prize. So Suzanne Tucker is the creator of Generation Mindful. Here's one of her visuals. Prize tomorrow. And to win that prize, Suzanne's asking that you share about the summit on social media. Maybe share something you learned from her interview and then tag me so that I can see what you've shared. And that's how you get entered in to win Suzanne's prize. So we'll do that draw tomorrow. Today, we will do the draw for Andy's book and a draw for VIP. Ooh, you've got it there. Can you hold it up so we can see?
Can you peek over it?
Yeah. Oh, I love the colors.
Yeah, and I'll sign it for whoever wins. So.
Yay. So hello, everybody. Hi, Sarah. I see that you're here. As you're hopping on, just say hello. Let us know where in the world you're from. Actually, the 3 of us are all from 3 different countries.
Yeah.
And Lillian, you're in Australia, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
And Andy's in the U.S.
Yep.
Boston.
And I'm in Canada. So yay. Yeah, so as you're joining, let us know where in the world you're from. And if you're watching on the replay, just type in #replay so we know that you were able to watch. It's so fun that we come from all around the world and we all have the same goal to help our kids with ADHD thrive.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start with a draw. Okay, so I've got all the names on this name wheel. So these are all the people who commented under Andy's thread who are entered in this draw. So let's see who the winner is.
Oh, I can't.
Yay! I love the sound of the celebration. I love it. Congratulations, Cara Lee. You get a signed copy. And what's the name of the book? How do I deal
with my emotions?
Lovely.
Yeah. And there's some great pages in the back for notes, so yay. I'm
so exciting. And that's your first book and it just came out, right?
It is my first book. We actually are launching hardcover by June, hopefully. We're cross our fingers. And accompanied a workbook will be with it coming as well.
Nice.
So, yeah, lots of fun stuff.
And Lillian, you have quite a few books that you've written.
Over the years, I've been doing this a long time. 6 books, yes.
Oh, wow. 6 books. I did 1 and I'm like, oh, God, I don't think I could do another one.
You can.
The 6 books were over 10 years, though.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That's inspiring. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Lillian, somebody who watched your interview commented that they would love to read one of your books. And that's actually the gift that you offered the audience as a downloadable digital version of
The Revolting Child.
Yes. Yeah, so everybody has the opportunity to read that book, the digital version. I'm so excited to read that too. It's on my list.
So many to read.
Yes. Okay, so let's start our discussion with Aaron Huey. So if you watched Aaron Huey today, just drop in the comments, let us know. This is the how to parent like a video game. Aaron takes the psychology behind video games and puts that into parenting strategies.
Wow. So
yeah.
Cool.
So, the things that kind of gets kids like sucked into the video games, why not use that into your parenting to motivate them to go along with what you want them to go along with?
Yes, absolutely.
And Aaron is my go-to guy for teens that really struggle. And that's the name of the group that he leads, Parenting Teens That Struggle. And also Beyond Risk and Back is the name of his podcast and his brand new app. So I saw some interest in the group. Some people are commenting that they're going to be purchasing his app called Beyond Risk and Back. Let us know in the comments here if you have tried out his app yet. And I'd love to have some comments in the group too, letting us know your feedback on that app, because it looks like a fantastic resource. Also, if you're a fan of Aaron Huey's, I just want to mention, if you scroll down back to maybe September in the ADHD Village, you will find a live with Aaron and I. And we did a big, long talk about video games back in the fall. So it has a lot of the same messages from this interview. And maybe some more tidbits that weren't in this interview. So if you don't have the VIP package and you really wanted to watch more of Aaron, just scroll down and you'll find his interview down there. And it's around September, October.
Wow.
Some of the people who commented on Aaron's video, they said that they really liked how he explains ADHD from his perspective, what it's like inside his brain. And he says it's like having a rock tumbler on, listening to heavy metal music while flamenco dancing.
Wow.
Yes, and this is coming from a man who's very insightful, very in tune with his body. He's got the strategies. He knows what his body needs to be functioning optimally. So it makes me really have compassion for our little, 6 and 7 and 10-year-old kids who have that rock tumbling in their brain, the heavy metal music, the flamenco dancers, and their brains are not fully developed. They don't have emotional regulation skills. And they're in a world where we're trying to squash and squish them into, fitting in. And all they want to do is say, like, just let me be. So we can come from that place of compassion, understanding where they're coming from.
Yeah, for sure. I love that.
I think. Oh yeah. So sorry, I've got so many notes, so many things I want to cover. But yeah, so it just makes you think that when your little child is acting out and they're showing a behavior that you don't like, just think about where they're coming from, what's underneath the behavior, and address that first before you get into fixing, the tone of voice that they use, or that they grab something or push somebody, or think about where they're coming from. And Aaron talks about the basic needs, and they're the same basic needs that have been covered by a lot of our speakers. So he said how important it is that your brain and your body have nutrition, hydration, intentional breathing, exercise, and sleep. And we keep hearing that same message. And Lillian, your son is a holistic naturopath. Is that right?
Yes. So I've got two sons. So the youngest son, who was diagnosed with ADHD, Adhd, and childhood depression, he's now 28 or close to 29. My eldest son, who's in his late 30s, he's a naturopath, herbalist, and nutritionist. Yeah.
Wow.
Any quick little tips you can give us? Because some of the speakers were wondering, we keep hearing how important nutrition is, and we'll be getting into that on day 8 of the summit. But is there anything that you could offer us? Any suggestions?
Yeah, absolutely. You could perhaps interview him one day. He's amazing, because he actually became a naturopath because of the journey, because his younger brother is 7.5 years younger. So he was old enough to kind of, see what was going on. So by the time he was in secondary school, he just really wanted to help families like ours. And that's one of his big passions in life. So we work together. So I do the parenting and relationship, and he does the physical and the emotional health and wellness. There's so many things, Lara, like water's important. Food additives was a huge one for our son. So he was extremely sensitive to food additives, colours, preservatives, flavour enhancers, etc. And Nathan now suggests with families with kids to be tested for pyrrole and methylation. So I'll be will be talking about those in my upcoming masterclass in a couple of weeks. So they're two things that he suggests people do straight away, and then once identified, then they can be nutritionally balanced. There's so many things that need to be looked at. Most of us are nutritionally deficient, whether ADHD or not. So we need to look at the individual body and see what that body needs are, because one child's needs could be very different to another. But when it comes to diet, I mean, I think avoiding too much sugar, colours, preservatives, additives is a good, all-round rule for all of us.
Yeah, such a good reminder.
Yeah.
I just want to share some more of the comments from Erin's interview. Emma said, "This talk is a turning point in my life." Like, wow, what a compliment to Erin that his talk is a turning point in her life. And she was very excited. She said she has like this bubbling of excitement inside of her, and it's pure love. And how beautiful. Like, that's the place we want to be parenting from, that place of that vibration of love and excitement, rather than being in that place where we're overwhelmed and frustrated and fatigued. So I'm so happy to hear, Emma, how excited you are after watching Erin's interview. Both Jenny and Stacy commented on how important front loading is. And that was also mentioned by Dr. Shannon in her interview. So putting in that plan in advance so kids know what to expect. And that really gives them a sense of security, like when they understand what they can expect. Stacy's big takeaway was the importance of self-care. And that's something that comes up all throughout the summit. So many of our speakers talk about the importance of self-care. And something that stood out to Stacy was when Erin said, your very worst when you are at your best is better than your best when you're at your worst. So you need to have that self-care so you can be at your best. So even when you're at your worst of your best, it's still better than. And then Stacy also said she liked the idea of consequencing the way of video game consequences. So, when you fail in a video game, it doesn't take you right back to the very beginning. It takes you down a level, and then you have another chance. So, if your child is, having some form of a consequence, you're not going to take away the PlayStation for a whole week. Maybe you're just going to knock down, I let you have 2 hours and now we're knocking it down to 1 or whatever. Just something to play with. Like, that's the way video games consequence. So our parenting could consequence in a similar way. Teresa loved the idea of the random reward generator. So in video games, these kids are getting random rewards. They're getting loot boxes with like jewels and weapons and tokens and whatever. So we can do that too, and we can surprise our kids with random rewards. Like, how fun is that? So that they're getting that boost of excitement from us, not just from the video games. Jocelyn said that she really liked when Erin said, "Don't put adult things on small shoulders." Really resonated with me too. So Erin Huey, absolutely fabulous. Are there any questions or comments about Erin before we move on? Sarah, you love that too, about not putting the adult things on small shoulders.
Lara, can I just jump in? Because I really resonated with Erin as well. And in the Nurtured Heart approach, stand 3, which is absolute clarity, we talk about setting rules and consequences, and we also talk about the reset. And we actually talk about the video game analogy in a little bit different way than Erin does, but it still aligns really well, because another reason kids love video games so much is their predictability. They know that there's nobody there nagging them or yelling at them or, telling them what to do. But if they make a mistake in the game kicks them out or whatever it does, and then they can reset again. So that's what we teach kids, is that once a mistake's been made, we don't have to go and have a 30-minute punishment. We can just reset and get back in the game again, the game of positivity and the game of moving towards positive behavior. So that video game analogy is really important. And I think it's why video games also make a lot of sense to kids, is because of that predictability. They know where they stand. They know what the rules are. The line is the line. There's no fuzzy lines. If you break the rule, or if you break a rule in the video game, you get kicked out. But the beauty of it is that you can reset and get straight back in the game again. And I love that analogy.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up. That's so important.
Yeah.
Sarah just said, yes, the reset without judgment. That's so good, right?
Yeah.
I'll have to check out this interview. I didn't see Erin's interview, but it sounds amazing. My perspective too, if I might just jump in from a trauma standpoint, is that our children are working so hard to, mold themselves in the context of their environments, school, home, social. And when they're in these games, it's like they already have the confidence. So there's like this level of being themselves that's accepted. And I feel like that's really motivating for a kid. So if we can bring a level of acceptance in the home, it's really helpful when they're regulating their system, when they don't have to feel like they're trying so hard.
Such a good
nail on the head there. I actually talked about this in my TV show that I did this week. And, we talked about why, so many kids are addicted and, around mental health and so forth. And sometimes if the child, and particularly the ADHD child, is struggling at school and or at home, when they get into this world of video games, they can have a whole new avatar. So they're not the kid who gets picked on. They're not the kid who gets in trouble. They're the kid having fun, getting results, winning, hanging out with like-minded people. So they're in a community where they feel safe, where they feel seen, where they feel successful, and they might not be getting that outside of the video game. And that's why some kids can spend hours and hours and hours on a video game, because it feels safe for them. It feels like a place where other people understand them, and they know the rules, and they know it's all predictable. And ADHD kids like that, what's the word that you talked about with Aaron? The predictability. They like to know, how things are and how things stand. So in that world of video games, they are a different person. Like they're a different avatar.
Yeah. I love that.
Such a good point.
And the fact that they're winning, like you said, they're winning. Yeah. And that in itself is great for them to have that feeling of safety and winning. Yeah.
And winning and rewards straight away. So they make a good move, they get a reward, they muck up. It's not huge, but they might get kicked out of the game. But as you said, Lara, they don't go all the way back to the start. They've just got to reset and go, okay, that was the mistake I made. Now I can reset. Okay, now let me learn from that mistake. Okay, I won't do that this time, and see if I can get up to the next level. So they're constantly trying to be better, but because we allow them to reset so quickly and get back in the game, then they just get all this success, and and they love it, and it's a good place for them to be.
Yeah.
I'm reading the comment here. It's an excellent observation. Read the video games and acceptance. So bringing in some more of that acceptance into the home would be such a value to the kids. Yeah. Sarah commented she loves how Aaron collected all of his data directly from kids and teenagers. Yeah. Like this data is coming from them and what works for them and why they like video games.
Yeah.
And actually, he's got a book coming out about this soon, too.
Cool.
Okay, let's talk about Allison. Allison Solomon is super passionate. She has 3 kids, or teenagers, I should say, all boys with ADHD. So she gets it, and she's super passionate about sharing, the struggles that she's been through and the strategies that work for her. Stacy in the group said that she's really drawn to Allison's passion. Diane said that the free gift that Allison offered is a 29-page download, and it's super useful. Mm-hmm. And so Allison also shared her ADHD parent roadmap, which is step 1 is understanding, like educating yourself, really understanding your child's specific ADHD. Number 2 is skills, teaching the kids these skills, because emotional regulation, self-regulation, all the executive functioning. These are all skills that need to be taught. Step 3 is connection. And that's come up all throughout the summit, how important connection is. And when kids feel connected, they feel safe, they feel loved, and then they're willing to take risks. The importance of managing your emotions and keeping your calm so you can co-regulate your kids. And then step 5 is self-care. There's that self-care coming up again.
Yeah. I feel like she knows my book because those are all the pillars in my book.
Oh, no way. I know. And her pillars are similar to my pillars too. Like we're all on the same page, which is so cool.
So cool. So aligned. So aligned.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Julia Black. Sarah, you're watching right now, and Sarah and Julia have co-created a beautiful program, Lights On, and it focuses on the mother, the matriarch of the family, finding their passion, their excitement, and coming from a place of lights on rather than that burnt out, lights off kind of place. So Julia said that moms are the solution, that moms are empowering our next generation of kids. And so exciting to think that we have the opportunity to raise children with ADHD, because these are the kids that are creative and curious. They're full of energy and passion. They're out of the box thinkers. They're risk takers. These are our future entertainers, leaders, entrepreneurs. Like, what a gift that we get to be the ones who parent them. And Julia says that as their parents, we get to be part of the solution.
I love that.
Yeah, Teresa said that her big takeaway was helping kids discover what's unique for them and what their passion is. And that has come up quite a few times in the summit too. Dr. Hallowell and Dr. Shannon also talked about helping kids find their strengths and passions and really nurturing that, and which sounds very similar, Lillian, to the Nurtured Heart approach too, where you're focusing on their positive rather than, you know, giving all your energy and focus to the negative. And we keep saying throughout the summit, where your focus
goes, your
energy flows and results show. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So why do you want to focus on all the misbehaviors and all the things that are weak and not right? Like, put your focus and energy where the positives and the strengths are.
All right.
Okay. So Julia, any other comments about Julia? Julia is actually going to be joining us next weekend for a live. So if anyone has questions or comments for Julia, you'll have a chance to ask next weekend. Andy, let's talk about you. Oh, where did Andy go?
I think she was just straightening up her camera.
I hear you, Andy. I don't see you. Okay, Lillian, let's talk about your interview then, and we'll come back to Andy's after. Hopefully she can rejoin. So Stacy, who watched your interview, said that what we're just talking about, that she really likes that you focus on the good and that you praise rather than focusing on the negative, and the importance of giving that same love and energy to all the kids in the family, not just the one who's struggling. Like, the importance of, and maybe you can talk about that a little bit, Lillian, because having a sibling with a neurodiversity is really challenging.
Absolutely. And in our family, so my eldest son is quiet, compliant, cooperative, and, you know, we never had challenges with him at all in his school life. Like, he was just a kid, self-entertaining, loved his books and his Lego. So we had this beautiful, quiet life until younger brother came along 7.5 years later and caused complete havoc in our homes. And all of the attention that he got, like, you know, as a family, was rudely taken away by his younger brother, who demanded so much attention. And sadly, you know, because we were in the thick of trying to deal with this child who was very, very challenging, like, he got asked to leave 5 daycare centres and kindies. He was really challenging. in the thick of all of that, we were not giving positive recognition to our eldest son, who was doing the right thing, who was playing quietly, who was entertaining himself, who was dealing with the situation so beautifully. So by the time he was about 10, he started to get very depressed. Like for a couple of years, he was bottling it in. And then at age 10, we were then more concerned about his health and well-being than his ADHD brother, because his depression was really bad. We ended up going to a psychiatrist for him, got him a dog, which was a great thing, actually. He became such good friends with that dog. And that's why I say to parents, please be very mindful if you do have more than one child and one is taking more of your attention, to be very mindful of giving equal positive energy and recognition for all of the children. Our son at age 13, unbeknownst to me, so when I went to write this book, because it was going to be a very personal story I wanted to really just say things I'd never told my family, my sister, like people, my best friend just did not know, because I was ashamed, I was embarrassed, I felt like a failure as a mum. So I got the permission from my 3 boys, my husband and my 2 sons, to share. And what my youngest son wrote at 15, close to 16, but 15, was so profound, I made it the forward in the book. But what my eldest son wrote took me to my knees. Like, I had no idea that things had got so bad with him. So at age 13, he actually made a noose. My husband's an electrician, and he made a noose out of electrical wire and climbed up into a high tree on our property, put the noose around the tree, around his neck, and attempted suicide. And fortunately, it was not successful. But we actually did not know about that until he was in his early 20s. So, and I'm not saying that to scare people, but I'm saying that because it's really, really important that we energize the success, or that the qualities and the things that all of our children are doing, big or small, whether neurodiverse or not. We need to recognize and see each other equally. And I know, like, I'm a teacher as well, and I can remember back to my teaching days. And if you think about it, Lara, what are the names that come to mind from kids that you taught 10 years ago? They were the challenging kids. They were the kids that took most of your attention. Mm-hmm. And, as teachers and as parents, and particularly us mums, we become our children's favourite toys. And our kids know how to get the favourite toy to work. They know how to press the buttons. They know how to make our arms move, our voice, escalate. They know how to really get the most out of us. They know how to work their favourite toy. And sadly, the kids learn that they get the most out of their favourite toy when they're doing the wrong thing, when they're mucking up, when they're breaking the rules, when they're fighting, etc. So, yeah, really just be very mindful of that energy and where the energy goes, and to keep it equal amongst all members of the family is really important.
Thank you for sharing that. And this is, Lillian, how you explain that we have been parenting upside down, where we're giving too much energy, too much focus to the behaviors and the things that we don't want, rather than funneling our energy into the things that we do want.
So when I first heard that, I'm like, what do you mean upside down? And it's not just parenting, it is relationships in general. Well, it can be, sometimes we focus on our partner more on the stuff they don't get done, or that we don't like, rather than what they do like, and we don't recognize. We might get grumbly and, say, well, why didn't you remember to bring the bread home, or what have you, but we don't really recognize them for this, the small things that they do. So we should be really recognizing each other. Anybody who's important to you in your life, focus on, and I love the analogy of the watering can. So you wouldn't take a watering can, fill it with beautiful clean water, put some nice plant nutrients into it, and you wouldn't go out into the garden and purposefully water the weeds. would you? It doesn't make sense because we don't want the weeds to grow. We want the flowers, the veggie patch, the herbs to grow. So the same with our relationships, we'll have to water what we want to grow and give as little energy to what we don't want to grow as possible. Yeah.
I love that. After watching your interview, Becky tried the strategy out. Her son was at a Ninja Warrior class, and some of the kids in the class were, off task and being silly, but her son was following the rules. He was doing what he was supposed to be doing. So after class, she made sure to really praise his good behavior. She was very specific and telling him exactly what she saw him doing. And then she told him that behavior was showing her that he was being respectful to his coaches.
And that's the key. She did so well, because it's not just about saying, well done, good job, I saw you behaving, I saw you doing a good job. That's the first part of the recognition. But the juicy part that Stacey got was, she said what that showed about him. It showed that you were being respectful. It showed that you were being cooperative. It showed that you were being a great team player. And that's how we build their portfolio of who they are as a person, that they'll take with them for the rest of their lives. Because so many kids' portfolios are full of, I'm not good enough, I'm naughty, I misbehave, I can't get it right, I'm hyperactive, I don't have attention, I'm no good at school. And they build that portfolio so that when they're a teen and a young, adolescent, young adult, and then they go off into their own, life, they'll take that portfolio with them of, I'm not good enough. So we have to build the portfolio as parents, whether we're starting with a 1-year-old or a 12-year-old, it doesn't matter. Whatever age your kids are at now, it's never too late to start switching out, taking out some of the other things in their portfolio and replacing them with positive things. So we want them to know that we're noticing that they're respectful, that they're cooperative, because we try and teach them those things usually when they're not doing them. So when they're being disrespectful, for example, that's when we give the beautiful lecture on being respectful, but that's not the time to do it. The time to do it is when they're showing signs of being respectful. So that's where the upside down part comes. We're just got to turn that back around the other way.
And I'm glad that you brought up that portfolio that these kids are carrying around with them. By the age of 12, kids with ADHD have 10,000 more negative comments in their portfolio than their neurotypical peers. 10,000 more. You're not sitting still, you're lazy, you're not listening, why can't you do this right? All those 10,000. Imagine what that's doing to their self-esteem.
And once that portfolio is full of that, it becomes more challenging once they're a young adult to switch that out. And so that the whole, where attention goes, energy flows and results show, well, the results then start to show that I'm not good enough to have a good relationship. Therefore, they attract a partner that is not good for them, that is not positive, that is not, I'm not good enough to earn a good wage or have a good job, or I'm not good enough to be in business for myself. I'm not good enough to have, a level of success. And they keep energizing that to the point where they keep attracting. Then, if you understand the law of attraction, then they keep attracting more of the stuff that they don't want, and they get into this cycle, and they get involved in, they might get into, drinking too much alcohol or drugs or something to try and feel better about themselves. And then it becomes a bit, then they're in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s, and their whole life becomes this, this cycle of negativity. And that's why our role as parents is so important. It's so important.
Andy, I'd love your perspective, because in your interview, we talked about how traits of ADHD are similar to traits of trauma. And I can imagine how traumatizing it is for a child to have so much negative feedback.
Yeah, no, exactly. I was thinking that when Lillian was talking, exactly that, like, just if our child isn't processing those 10,000 messages that they're getting and the feelings that accompany them, because it's not so much the words, it's actually the feelings that stay stored in the body. So if the words are accompanied by a feeling of not being good enough, then that magnetizes the message. right? It just magnetizes the message. And we can attach it to lots of different scenarios. So all the things that we're talking about right now as we grow up, if they're not processed properly out of the body and like metabolized out of the body, then they stay with you through your adulthood.
Yeah.
So even if you don't have ADHD, studies have shown that one of the messages in our reticular activating system for mostly every human being on the face of the earth is, I'm not good enough. And we're out trying to prove ourselves, prove to other people, prove to our parents, prove to our teachers, prove that we are. Which only goes to show that it's not so much the message, it was the feeling, and it got magnetized by the message.
Yeah, and that combination, that thought-feeling combination is what creates the beliefs that are ingrained in our subconscious. And yeah, feeling enough is one of those core beliefs.
Right.
How do we help our kids process these, these feelings?
Well, I mean, everything that like all the speakers are talking about are part of it. Like I talk about in my book, it's a masterpiece, right? There isn't just one modality or one key thing or one thing that we can do that will just magically make everything better. I really think it takes a lot of different elements. It's a lot of different things that come into play. My standpoint, it really comes from the parents. Like the parents, they are the mirrors for the kids. So if they are not in a regulated place, if they have stored trauma that they have not worked through, even if it's unintentional, it's being passed on to the child. So when they're at their most calmest space, that's when the child can exhibit better behaviors because it's being mirrored to them. ADHD or not, we are still the mirror for these children. So if we can take away more so of what are we doing, how are we leading, like I believe we go first, parents go first, then the children follow, right? So taking consideration any type of psychological injury that they might have, it's still important that we do our own work because we are those mirrors for them. And so I think that's really where it starts.
Absolutely. And that's the foundation for the ADHD Warrior Mama program is starting with the moms, starting with like working within ourselves so that we can mirror, as you say, for the kids. And once we work on ourselves, our energy ripples out throughout the family.
Absolutely. Exactly. It's a ripple effect. And also too, it's accepting that some of this is the way it is and like being okay with that piece. Cause I think I have a son who has ADHD as well. He's 18 now. And we're experiencing a different stage of life because he's going into college. And I think I've come in the group and been very expressive about he can't get up on time. I don't know if he's going to survive in school. He might flunk out like without mommy being there and daddy being there. It's real struggle. Like, let's be honest, like this is real time struggle. And when you're in it and you're so connected to it, it's really hard to get that bird's eye view, which I love this summit for, because I wish I said this to you when we were backstage, Laura, that I wish I had this when I was a young mom with a son that had ADHD. I didn't have tools or the resources. I was not equipped. I am a survivor of trauma myself. And so I had not really processed what had happened to me at a young age until I was a mom. And so at a very young age I have 4 children. So all of my children, unfortunately, have had a taste of that dysregulation because I was a mom who had no capacity. And raising them was very, very difficult. And I'm just being completely honest. And that's what I talk about in my book. So it's really important that we have this bird's eye view right now of like, number one, when we're so close to it, it's really hard to detach from our outcomes. We are so attached to what our kids are going to be like as a reflection of what it is on us that we attach to their behaviors. If we can detach to the outcome and just accept, maybe he's a little hyper, maybe this school is not going to be easy for you. Having those real life conversations around acceptance has really helped me in my life and raising my son.
I think that's so important, if I can jump in, because my son is now 28 going on 29. So I have the opportunity to talk to him now as an adult, reflecting back on what was happening. So my son got kicked out of every school he attended, from preschool right through to his second secondary school. And at age 15, he was kicked out. And I was sitting in the principal's office with my husband and my son when the school principal actually said, he got expelled at the end of a school year. He was only 15, and we were coaching with we call him our angel Frank. Changed our lives, completely changed our lives, and we allowed our son to make a decision at 15. Now I'm a teacher. You're a teacher, Lara. We know how important education is, but my son was struggling in the education system. So at age 15, when we allowed our son to make a decision not to continue at school, his school principal, with kind of hands on hips, really arrogantly said, well, what are you going to do? He basically had just told us that our son was the worst kid he's ever seen or taught in his whole teaching career. And in front of our son said, what are you going to do? And my son said, I'm going to get an apprenticeship. And he said, you've got no hope with your attitude and your marks, because he's never had anything positive said to him in this school. And with that, in the moment, it was challenging for me, but my son literally stood up and used some very choice words, swished everything off the principal's desk as he left the room, and said, you watch me. And that was almost the best thing that ever happened, because he actually went without us on his own. He wanted to do it on his own because he had something to prove. So we didn't have to say, do this, do that, do the other. He went out and he got himself enrolled in, here in Australia, we call it TAFE. So it's tertiary, outside of the regular school system. He completed 2 years of high school in 6 months. He went out and got himself into a pre-apprenticeship course, all on his own, got himself a position, got himself work experience, got himself a position all on his own. He actually completed an apprenticeship in plumbing, then decided he wanted to be an electrician because my husband was an electrician, then got a second apprenticeship. And electrical is the hardest academic apprenticeship to do because it's very mathematical. And now my husband and my son just celebrated 10 years in business together. And they have a very, very successful business. He has another business as well. He partners with his brother in, and he's a successful businessman, and he probably earns more than his school principal, who told him he would never achieve anything. He actually tried to write to his school principal. Well, he did write to him, but he never got a response back. He wanted to let him know that thank you for your encouragement. This is where I'm at now, and I'm doing very nicely, thank you. And that was many years ago. But because, like what you just said, Andy, we allowed him to sort of, we gave him permission to make good choices. And, university was not for him. He would, like his brother, triple degree, 7 years at uni. For our youngest son, that wasn't his path. But he went to be very, very successful, like his big brother, in a different way. Sometimes has a better earning capacity than his big brother with 3 degrees. So by allowing him to see greatness in himself and to work it out for himself with our help if he needed it, but not with us, trying to control everything. And he made great decisions. He really made great decisions, which is awesome. And he's still intense. He's still got those ADHD tendencies. He's hyperactive. He's still intense. He has this beautiful, but we call intensity a life force. It's a beautiful life force. And as long as we can help the children to guide their intensity in beautiful, positive ways, some kids might, get into music or into art or into sport, or, they could be brilliant gamers, programmers, they all, if we can allow them to use that beautiful intensity in a positive way instead of seeing it as a negative thing, then we're really going to help our child to be successful in whatever success means to them. You know, success means something different to everybody.
Yeah, I love that.
And that's something that's come up throughout the summit too, is helping our kids find their passions, helping them find their strengths and letting them do that. I'd love to hear from parents who are watching, what is your child passionate about and what are their strengths? If you could type that in the comments, it would be really fun to see what everyone's passions are, and let's really celebrate and foster their passions.
Yeah. I mean, my son got a baseball scholarship for college, so academics is not his, he struggles academically, but like you said, his intensities has really gone towards his athletics, and he's a phenomenal baseball player. And I think too, I just want to piggyback on something Lillian said while we wait for some comments, but I think too is that when we detach from the outcome, it allows our kids to explore more, right? Because if we're not hovering so much, because we're keeping them in line, making sure that they adhere to the rules because we're afraid of what we're going to look like, then they have a little bit more empowerment to like go out and spread their wings a little bit, because I think they want our approval, right? No matter what, they want us, they want our approval, they want our acceptance. And a lot of their behaviors are very much in line with wanting a reaction, right? Which is not so good and sometimes good, depending on what the situation is, but it's all in that approval. They don't want to be disappointing us. And I think what I see with now as a mentor working with trauma, I have adults that have ADHD and they've grown up feeling like they've been a disappointment their whole life to their parents. And it's the saddest thing to see, because they've lived like that, like pretty much their whole life, never feeling accepted, never feeling like they've done enough, never feeling like they could spread their wings because, people didn't approve, and especially where we are in a different time and space right now where we're talking about these things, but for many years they were swept under the rug and they were stigmatized. And I'm so glad now we can have these conversations.
At our very core as humans, we want to feel safe, we want to feel loved, and we want to feel like we are enough. And like what you said with the parents kind of helicoptering, like when we're trying to get them to follow the rules and do the right thing according to our belief system, right? So
they're not supposed to follow the rules. They're actually our generators. They're our rule breakers, right? We kind of want that. It's exciting, like, because they're breaking paradigms that we needed broken long time ago, right? So they're doing it. They're innovators in their own way, and they're creating new space. We're having this conversation because of them.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. They are our teachers, right? And especially those kids with the neurodiversities, they're the ones that are teaching us to have this shift in the parenting paradigm. If it weren't for them, we'd still be set back in the old ways. So they are evolving us.
Yeah, they are evolving us. Exactly. Yep.
Somebody just wrote, love the life force reference. She's always felt this with her grandson. And somebody else said they've tried many things. In the end, coding, math, and amazing animal intuition.
That's
cool. Awesome. Yeah. Cara Lee, Andy, said that you have given her hope after watching your interview. She said now she feels hopeful that, is Cara Lee the one who won your book?
She is, yeah.
Whoa. She said that you've given her hope that it's possible to learn and grow and manage emotions.
Absolutely. It is. It is.
And Terry said she appreciates your insights of how trauma affects the body. And she realizes how important it is to calm her nervous system and tell herself, I am safe.
Yeah, that's my mantra.
Yeah, so interesting, because when we go into this fight or flight mode, our brain doesn't know the difference between the danger of a tiger chasing us or about to fall off a cliff, or the stress we're feeling when our toddler's having a tantrum. Like, we're in that. But if you just stop and remind yourself, like, nobody's chasing me, I'm not going to fall off a cliff, I am safe.
Exactly. So important.
Oh, Karen said it's so important to help our children learn what their triggers are while they're kids.
Yeah.
Like so many of us adults now are just discovering what our triggers are. Imagine if we could have learned that as a child and learned not only what the triggers are, but how we cope and how we handle things when we're triggered.
Absolutely.
Karen also said she's a big takeaway from your talk was the importance of mindfulness. And mindfulness means like being in the moment, connecting to the moment, and how you can do that. I think one of the suggestions you gave was to rub your hands together and touch your face.
Yeah.
Or to smell something, or take a drink of water, or the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 senses. So that importance of just grounding yourself in the moment.
Yep. Really important.
Andrea, I don't think it was during this interview, but one of our previous talks, you talked about how self-care can be when you come home from work and you just sit in the car for a few minutes before you go in the house.
To do.
And I saw that came up on Facebook. Somebody posted that on Facebook recently, and it reminded me of that conversation we had, that just sit in the car, take a few minutes to decompress, do some deep breathing, connect with your senses, do what you need to do to get your calm before you walk in the door and you're onto your next job.
Yeah, because the thing is, the reason why I love that is because our children are not just acting off of our words and, something that's happening in the situation. It's our energy. So if we come in the house and we're in a energy of, frustration, aggravated, just got cut off in traffic, we're late, dinner's got to get done, we got to run around here, and we're just kind of in a million places, our children are vibing off that energy as well. So if you just give yourself like a few seconds in the car, like a few minutes in the car, whatever you can do, that just grounds you and centers like your energy, right? So you can go into the situation in a different energy. It's almost like, I sometimes think of it like putting on a different hat. Like I wore this hat for today, but when I go into my home, this is the hat I'm wearing for now. So it's like almost even like acting, like put on a new hat, new energy, go in the house, so it's like a whole different vibe when you walk in. And you know what? I don't love the saying, fake it till you make it. It's not one of my favorite sayings. But in some instances, it's like, go in the house and literally put on some music, start a dance party. Even if you're not in the mood, I'm telling you, you change your state, it changes the energy. And the kids vibe to that. And they're like, oh, cool. And like their rambunctiousness turns into like dancing and playfulness. And you feel better too. And even in those moments, you can instruct them on the next thing. Like, all right, we're going to dance for 5 minutes and then we're going to have dinner. So who's going to run and wash their hands first? Right. So you start the transitioning during the playful time.
Yeah.
That's so important what you said. And it's not just a fluffy thing about this energy and the vibes. Like it is a scientific. It is like, this has been proven by science that whoever has the biggest energy, everybody else's energy tries to match it. So if you're coming in with that big energy of frustration and exhaustion, your kids are going to match up to and align to that energy. And what you just said there about playing and having fun, like that's such a nice way to bond with your kids too, and give them that boost of feel good neurotransmitters.
Right. And also too, like you were saying, yes, your kids, you're right, in the sense your kids will try to mirror or match the energy, but some kids will go into that fawn response and they will become submissive to your energy. So they'll be like walking on eggshells, and that's a trauma response. And so we have different kids that will follow different suits. So if you have angry energy a lot of the time because you're frustrated and you come into a situation and they're afraid, they may learn that fawning is how they stay out of line of fire. So you don't want your children to grow up fawning, you know what I mean? Because then they do that in their own life. And so, or they're fighting, right? And so now they're even more hyperactive because they're in that fight response. or they're leaving, they're checking out, they're going to play the video game, they're done. They don't even want to talk to you because that's flight. They're see you later, they're checking out. They're afraid to be in your energy. So we really gotta be able, what I think is so beautiful about the work that I do is that, and how I teach people, is there are cues that people give us. And you also can cue your people on like how to kind of respond to you. So if you are known to be a very powerful, agitated energy, you're cueing them on how to respond. And whatever way they feel safe in is how they will respond. Some kids will feel safer in flight or fawn. It depends on where they're, or pursuit. There's also another one, pursuit. So it really just depends. And why this is so important is because we get stuck in those stagnant energies, and that's what we take on into our life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kids pick up on our energy like they don't have to hear our voice. And that's why I say if the adults in the home are having some challenges and they need to have some discussions, and sometimes, you know, voices might get raised, you might think, well, I'm in the back room, they're in the front room, that's okay. But the kids pick up on that energy. So it's really important for adult conversations to be had not when the children are in the house. Because even though you think the kids aren't listening, but they're picking up on that energy, and then they take that on. And sometimes kids, you know, blame themselves. It's my fault that mum and dad are fighting because I was naughty or I did the wrong thing, and they're fighting about that. And how many times do you hear stories where, you know, when kids have grown up and, you know, or the parents separated or divorced, the kids, even as adults, blame themselves for their parents', you know, relationship challenges. So it's so important to watch our energy. Spot on, Andy. Energy is everything.
It really is. Yeah.
Parents, do you have any questions for Lillian and Andy while we have them here for a few more minutes? Any questions based on what we talked about tonight or based on their interviews? While we're waiting for some questions to come in, Andy, I just wanted to share a few more comments from your interview. Ashley said that it's really important, what she took from your conversation was it's really important when your child is upset and you want to comfort them with touch, that you get their consent. Is it okay if I touch your shoulder? Is it okay if I rub your arm? Would you like a hug? And teaching that from a young age, consent for touch is so important.
Yeah. And also that they get to make a decision whether they want it or not. And that it's okay if they don't, that's okay. Right. How many times has someone said to you, oh, go hug your uncle so-and-so? Well, you know, you should ask them, do you want to hug your uncle? Not go hug your uncle. And it could be, I'm just using it as an example, right? But really important to get your children's consent.
Yeah. I love that. Beth called you a genius, Andy.
Why, thank you, Beth.
That she's going to be working on exploring by asking herself questions, and her and her son, like, practicing sitting with their uncomfortable emotions. So when we feel those uncomfortable emotions, our natural instinct is to kind of shove them away, suppress them, distract ourselves. But just to practice, sit with them, feel them, notice them. And let your child know they're safe to feel those feelings.
Exactly. And also there's a duality. Like, you can be sad and happy. A lot of times we think we can only have one emotion, but we actually have many emotions going on at the same time. And children can have many emotions too. And sometimes they don't think that's okay. And you can tell by their energy how they're trying to get out of an emotion or suppress it or distract themselves. And it's like, you can break up with your boyfriend and be really sad about that, but you can still go out with your friends and be really happy to be with your friends. Like, this is all okay. So emotions in general are safe to be felt.
Thank you. There's some questions coming in. Someone said, if trauma is persistent in the school environment, what are some tools we can teach our kids in dealing with those feelings?
So I just want to make sure I'm clear. Persistent in the school, as in like if some like is there bullying happening, or is there something in the school that's going on? Is that what they mean?
I don't know. Maybe we'll wait and see if they respond. I do know that the school environment can be traumatizing. Like,
of course,
think
because
about,
they're not trauma informed. Most schools are not trauma informed, and I think that's really important. And that's the work that I do, and why I wrote the book is because we should be all becoming trauma informed in our life. And really simply stated, recognizing presence of trauma is really what we're doing. And so for our children, it's really about that, you know, if there's something going on in school and it doesn't feel safe for them, to make sure that they have a place that they can go to, that they can, people they can trust, or some sort of support system outside of school or even inside of school that they can kind of lean on. Because if they leave school and don't really discuss or talk about or even just express what's going on, you don't really know unless you know, right? So, and also allow, for me, for my own children, the 4 of my children, it's really about teaching them to advocate for themselves. Like, this doesn't feel good. And I'm making a choice, like, not to be here.
Yeah, I love that.
So really advocating and teaching your kids how to advocate for themselves and use their voice. So but I'd like to know a little bit more specifically.
Yes, there's more information. Bullying and leadership not supporting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, bullying, you know, it's a tough one. That's a struggle, you know, for lots of families, you know, and I definitely have dealt with it myself. And I have to say, like, even as a trauma, you know, someone that specializes in trauma, it really is having them advocate for themselves because we're not in school with them. So a lot of times what happens is with bullying is that they don't have language. They have fear, they have reactive things going on, visceral things going on, but they don't have language to say exactly how they feel. So it's really teaching them how to speak their pain. I don't like it when you talk to me like that. It makes me feel this way. Now, again, it's not one size fits all because every bullying experience is different, but you can only work with your child, right? Because if they're not being responsive, if the school's not being responsive, if a family's not being responsive, like if someone's getting bullied and you go to their family and they're not being responsive, what do you have left? You only can empower your child the best that you possibly can with the tools. So that advocation, I think, is hugely important. And knowing that you have support and really telling your kids, your guidance counselor is your support system. I am your support system. The principal is your support system. And really use the word support. Not go to your teacher. That's not enough. You're being supported by your guidance counselor. That's why they're there. Your principal is supporting you in this way and really teaching them who are the support people for them.
I love that. Like, that makes it very clear.
Very clear.
Jenny just wrote, at school, I asked a friends whose kids are friends with mine to be a support buddy for mine because she never spoke up. This worked well as mine would ask for her friend. Then the friend will go and support her in telling. Yeah, so that's why we have a buddy system.
Yeah, I love that.
And I think too, like when we talked about the portfolio, the more positive stuff we can put in their portfolio, we can't stop a bully from being a bully, and that's another whole topic because that's about how they feel about themselves as well. But we can put in our kids' portfolios, you know, resilience and standing strong and going, I know my greatness. I know I'm not what that bully's saying, even though it hurts. But, you know, just to have that sort of sense of knowing who they are so that they don't take it on as fact. So they're not taking it on what the bully is saying, even though it hurts. Because even though I know who I am now and I'm confident with myself, if somebody said something that hurt my feelings, it's not human or natural not to take it on in some way because it still hurts. But then I would go, you know what? I know I'm a person of integrity and honesty, and I know I'm kind and thoughtful. And what you said about me is, I love the saying, what other people say about me is none of my business. And that's probably something you could even teach to your kids, because And sometimes, that those kids who are being bullies, it's not always about you, it's about how they feel about them. So then you can actually almost teach your children a little bit of compassion for the bully, because the bully is being a bully because they don't feel good about themselves. So you could maybe even teach your children to show some kindness to that bully, to make that bully feel better about who they are as a person. And that could totally turn things around, because that bully is looking for some recognition and acknowledgement of some greatness that they have. And they might, who knows what's happening in that child's home life. They could be, who knows, like a lot of trauma, and it could be happening for them.
Absolutely.
So teaching your children compassion for others, even though they're not being nice to you, maybe not in that moment where they're bullying you, but then to find an opportunity to show some kindness to that person, that could be another tool as well to teach the child who is being bullied.
Yeah,
I love that perspective. Thank you for sharing that, because the kids who are bullying, they're kids too, and we don't know what's going on for them that's causing this behavior. This behavior of bullying, we have to look beneath the surface too, right, and find out what's going on.
Yeah, I love that. And also, just to kind of piggyback on that too, is like, I think compassion is so important to teach our kids, and empathy and all those things. But on the flip side of it too is that kids also can learn that allowing these things, because some kids can be so empathetic and so passionate that it ends up where now they're like a doormat, right? And so they're not learning how to stand on their own 2 feet. And the subject on resilience is, we're really taught that we're born resilient, but the truth is that resilient is only built. We're all capable of being resilient, but we're actually not born resilient at all. And the more trauma we've experienced, the level of resilience we have is even smaller. So I think that helping them build that resilience just around certain things, like with my kids, when I've had situations like this with bullying, and I use the term bullying loosely because sometimes even just banter can be now called bullying, right? Kids don't have that. It's a very intense banter because we have social media and all these other factors at play. But I think it's also important for that child to learn what is a good friend, and what kind of person do you want in your life? Do you want them to talk to you like that? Would you like someone to say those things to you? Whether you have compassion for them or not, is this someone you want in your life? Right? So like, I try to have that conversation with my kids, because I want them to be able to decipher between a jerk, like who's just being a jerk, right? Who's not really getting the message. And we start with compassion, we start with empathy, but then still not getting the message. There's still some toxicity going on there. So it's like, who do you want in your life? Like, what kind of people do you want in your life?
Don't give energy to that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, give energy to that, exactly. Yeah.
Jenny said, our kids know that teachers who will support them by how some teachers don't do anything to resolve the issues.
Yeah, that's true. Sad, but it's
so
true.
Collaborating with the teachers, getting them on board, like.
Yeah. Or naming them. I've literally called my kids' school, and named someone, like after I talk to people and I decide, okay, you're the support person. She's not going to her teacher anymore. She's going directly to you. Okay, fine. And we talk about that plan of action where we eliminate the unsupportive ones. Why even give our energy to those people? That's just going to reinforce a message to the child that what their problem is not big enough, right? They're not, somebody's not focusing on them. Maybe they feel abandoned in that relationship because that person is just checking out. And a lot of times I see this and I know I love teachers and I think they do amazing work, but teachers also don't have the capacity for all this, right? They're micromanaging so many relationships and so many dynamics that they don't have the capacity for all these kids and like all the stuff that's going on. So cutting through the crap and being like, okay, this is the support person. And then telling your child, you don't go to your teacher anymore. Your teacher's there for school, for work, blah, blah, blah. But so-and-so is the one that you're going to go to for this thing that you're struggling with. And then really having them know and opening up that conversation, maybe even going into the school and saying, you're the support person. Let's have the conversation in front of them.
Yeah. And thanks for mentioning that, because teachers might have 30 kids in their class
with
all different, different needs, and they're trying to give the curriculum and do all, like, there's lots going on. So your child may be feeling upset about something and the teacher maybe isn't seeing it because they're focused on 29 other kids and the academics and all the things. So yeah, having more support from other people in the school is so helpful.
Yeah, even parents, like naming a person, like if you're the one that's like working a lot or doing a lot of things or micromanaging the kids, or you have a lot of stuff going on outside of the home and inside the home, maybe saying to your partner or your spouse partner, hey, listen, you're the one that like is going to handle this situation, because I just don't have the capacity to do it, rather than them coming to you and you just completely like not being helpful, right? Rather have someone that is good. Maybe auntie so-and-so is the support person for this situation. It's okay to outsource. A lot of parents think they have to do everything on their own, but outsourcing is really what strengthens our ability to be resilient. We don't have to do it on our own.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's why we have the ADHD Village, right? To reach out for support, get some of your questions answered and feel like you're not alone. This has been a great conversation, ladies. Thank you so much, Lillian and Andy, for joining us. And thank you for being a part of the ADHD Village. Parents, if you have more questions, you can, or comments, share them on this thread. I'm sure Lillian and Andy will have a chance later on to respond, or you can also ask questions underneath their threads. Any final words before we wrap up?
I think the conversation today was wonderful, and I think really, you know, for us, you know, parents of ADHD kids out there, you are doing an amazing job. The fact that you're here, taking the time to listen in and learn, shows so much greatness in you, you know, shows that you are a parent who really cares about your children and your family and your relationships, and, you know, that you are resilient as a parent. And I think the big takeaway for me today was really that self-care as well. So knowing that, you know, you have to look after yourself. If you want to be the best version of your, you know, the best parent that you can be, that's the name of one of my books actually, the best parent that you can be, then you need to look after yourself and, you know, be the best version of you, and show your kids that, you know, that self-care is important as well. It's another great thing to model. So yeah, thank you, and lovely meeting you, Andy. I love you. I love you. Yeah, it's been great. Thank you, Lara.
Thank you, Lara.
Thank you. And parents, join us tomorrow. Tomorrow, the topic is school. So it actually ties in nicely to this conversation we've had, how to advocate for your child at school, how to collaborate with the school staff, how to support your children's executive functioning at school. So tomorrow is all about school, and today's videos are still available for about 3 more hours. So if you didn't have a chance to watch them yet, you can hop on and watch. And just as a reminder, next weekend, April 2nd to 3rd, there's a 48-hour replay period. So if you missed any of the videos, you'll have access to everything next weekend. Awesome. Thank you so much. Everyone have a good night, or if you're in Australia, have a good day.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.